Woo! It's the boy, Bubba, let's coming through. Hella clutch, flawless, can't be touched. It's your boy, Bubba, let's. Yeah, I need that hot take. I need the truth and everything that is not fake. So tell me.
Welcome back, Bubba Bunch, to another edition of the Bubba Let's Sports Podcast. It is episode 221, and it's a very tired Bubba Let's. It's been a long day, but I'm going to tell you this right now. There is plenty more to come when it comes to free agency. So, if you're listening to this and more deals have gotten done than the ones I just named, just know that this is being recorded at 11:21 p.m. on March 17th, 2021. And I have looked through all the deals that have been done in the past 3 days. And these are ones that have stood out to me. Not every single one I'm going to talk about, but this is going to be the winners part. It's going to be broken down into two parts, really. Let's talk about teams that did really well so far and specific deals that I like. And, of course, what New England's doing, which is just throwing stimulus checks left and right over here like they're the U.S. government. And on the next episode, we're going to talk about what some of these teams are doing that makes no sense to me, and some deals that just don't make sense. So we're gonna have a little bit of fun with that one. But for now, let's talk about some really good deals that are going around in the NFL. Let's talk about the amount of money that the Patriots are spending with that close to $80 million in salary cap space, and what they're doing with it. Because as of a few hours ago, they got back a pretty nice piece to that defense that's just looking amazing. But let's talk about the signings that I have loved so far this offseason. And let's go with some ones that just make sense, right? Let's talk about Corey Linsley to the Los Angeles Chargers. Well-known Packer, career-long Packer. I mean, he's built an already great career, almost Hall of Fame worthy, I would say. Just an incredible time with Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers. He's heading West Coast. He's heading to Los Angeles with the Chargers for 5 years. He's most likely going to end his career here. But this is not just a great deal for Corey Linsley, who's joining a great team on the rise that's just gotten their new head coach, Brandon Staley. Defensive mind, but I think that offense is going to be just great. It's been underrated for many years. But think of this deal and how important it is to a young guy like Justin Herbert now to have someone under center that has played with one of the best quarterbacks of all time, really, of our generation for sure. And now a young guy, teach him some things about preparation, about control, about anticipation, and just overall the game, in the game, really, before the play even starts. There's so much that Linsley can teach Justin Herbert, and Justin Herbert coming off of that huge rookie season. I think this is a great pairing with an already great offensive line, and you got to think that he is now a teammate once again of Brian Bulaga, who spent a lot of his time in Green Bay as well. So to have this duo of the former Packers on one team, an already great offensive line, Justin Herbert's getting protected, and I'm all about it, man. This is going to be a fantastic offense to watch next year, and I think Corey Linsley with the Chargers was just a unexpected move. I wasn't really expecting him to leave Green Bay, but for him to join the Chargers, who are going to be really good next year and fun to watch next year, is a great addition to that team. On the defensive side, let's look at Bud Dupree to the Tennessee Titans, a necessity for them on that defensive side. They were bad defensively last year. I did not think they were going to make it that far into their season with that bad of a defense, and it was really the catalyst for the end of their season, really. Their offense was going to be great, efficient, with Derrick Henry leading the way and Ryan Tannehill being great off the play action. But their defense was really what's going to hold them back from being a Super Bowl contender. Not being able to stop the run, not being able to make a play, really, and stop any offense from getting off the field. They would just be on the field constantly. So to have a playmaker like Bud Dupree, who was a big part of that defense last year for the Steelers, he really stepped up and is an amazing leader, great veteran. It's something that the Tennessee Titans desperately need. They look like the Tennessee Titans. I think they're a great football team, and I love Mike Vrabel as a coach. He's tried different things, man. He's brought in different players. A lot of these guys are leaving, and it's like Dory Jackson, Malcolm Butler. Like, you're trying all of these different players, and some of them just don't work out. And we saw it last year with Jadeveon Clowney. It just doesn't work. But I appreciate and respect a coach that goes out of his way to find a player and try to make it work. Try to do something different on defense. Now, ultimately, if there is no improvement on this defense this year, Mike Vrabel could be on the hot seat. You have a great offense, but if you can't have a balanced team, if you go in the NFC or AFC, it's not going to matter. We saw it with the Tampa Bay Bucks. We saw it with the Kansas City Chiefs 2 years ago, that balanced teams, you can have a great offense, but you got to have a defense that can withstand, and can get off the field by making a play. Tennessee Titans aren't that. So hopefully with Bud Dupree, as now most likely the defensive leader of the Tennessee Titans for 5 years, well, this is going to be a nice experiment for Mike Vrabel, and I would love to see Bud Dupree in a different uniform. It's going to be weird to see, but he's going to make some plays for the Titans. So then, let's look at some offensive weapons, and some of these are just, my mouth waters at the idea of these guys playing for these teams next season. This one just happened today. Emmanuel Sanders signs with the Bills for 1 year. Now, they do get rid of John Brown, who was a really nice go route guy, nice deep route guy, but I feel like they've replaced that with Emmanuel Sanders. Been bouncing around the league a little bit. Didn't have the greatest year last year with the New Orleans Saints. He had some glimpses of his own old self, like he was in Denver. But I think Emmanuel Sanders brings a nice piece to this already great offense, who's improved their offensive line, who has a really good running game with Zach Moss and Devin Singletary. You know Josh Allen's going to be an MVP candidate next season, but think about the wide receivers that are going to play for the Buffalo Bills next year. Exclude John Brown. It doesn't matter, ladies and gentlemen, because guess what? Wide receiver 1, Stephon Diggs, who was awesome last year. I mean, like, in every category possible as far as receivers goes, he was there. Wide receiver number 2, Cole Beasley, best slot receiver in all of football, had his best year of his career last season, ended it with an injury, so that was hard to see, but that man cannot be stopped. Great route runner and explosive guy in the slot. Number 3, probably put Emmanuel Sanders in there. Deep route guy, great route runner. He can do pretty much everything for you. Number 4, how about Gabriel Davis? The man stepped up last year and made some really nice catches in that Colts game, but as a number 4 receiver, oh man, Josh Allen's got to love this. And Emmanuel Sanders for a cheap price for the career that he's had, I think it'll be a nice addition. It should have been, or it will be what he should have been doing in New Orleans. But man, oh man, that's a great deal for a cheap price. I'm excited to see what Josh Allen can do next season with the Buffalo Bills. How about another wide receiver? It just happened today. Curtis Samuel to the Washington football team. Ladies and gentlemen, the football team might have an offense next year. Blows my mind, right? Look, their defense, we all know, is going to be great. Their defensive line is scary. Their secondary, underrated in my opinion. They're hard, they're physical, and they've really improved their game over the last few seasons. For what it was supposed to be last year as far as a rebuild year with Ron Rivera, well, Riverboat Ron came into Washington and said, screw that, we're going for a title. This is a very dangerous football team, literally and metaphorically. But the addition of Curtis Samuel on offense, considering that the talk of this offense was they need a quarterback, they need offensive weapons outside of Terry McLaurin. The fact that Logan Thomas stepped up to the ability that he did last year really set the tone for this offseason. They have potential, and it kind of skipped a lot of the progression that they needed on offense. They had their their tight end. Logan Thomas is athletic. He's a great route runner. He is huge. He's fast for his size. Got great hands. Terry McLaurin, I can talk about him all day. Fast, kind of small for his size, but he makes up for it in every category possible. And even with the uncertainty of a quarterback last season, I mean, we're bouncing around from Dwayne Haskins to Kyle Allen and eventually Alex Smith. The man still put up numbers and was top 5 alongside Stephon Diggs in a lot of those categories. So now an addition of a speedy, athletic, versatile guy like Curtis Samuel, who didn't get all of his work that he could have done in Carolina, I think he can shine in Washington. And now with Ryan Fitzpatrick, most likely going to be the starting quarterback now. Don't count out Taylor Heineke. Don't count out Steven Montez. There's a QB competition heading to Washington. I would like to see Heineke get a chance before Ryan Fitzpatrick, but the gunslinger himself, a poor man's Brett Favre, I would like to say, and Ryan Fitzpatrick will utilize Terry McLaurin and Curtis Samuel just as well as he would in Miami with Preston Williams and Devontae Parker. I think this is an upgrade for Ryan Fitzpatrick. He's in a better suited defense. He's in a really good coaching staff and an offense on the rise with a pretty good offensive line, to say the least, with Brandon Scherff leading the way, who's also got an extension. Or he was, I think they used the franchise tag on him, but certainty at the offensive line, certainty in the wide receiver position. They might go for another guy in the draft, which would be nice. Running back wise, Antonio Gibson's going to be really nice coming out of the backfield as well. So the weapons are available for this Washington football team. And knowing that you'll get extra possessions from that defense, Curtis Samuel to the Washington football team, it's going to be a nice pairing, and I'm excited for it. If you're a Cowboys fan, I'll say this right now. Hot take of 2021, the Cowboys won't win the NFC East. Just saying that. It definitely. You know what? No, that's not a hot take. The hot take is the Cowboys will be third in the NFC East, behind Washington and New York. You heard it here first. You heard it here first, ladies and gentlemen. I'm very tired. I'm trying to get through this. The last signing that I think this is my favorite one, because it'll go down as a very sleeper pickup, but I think for the future of this team, this could work out tremendously in their favor if their quarterback right now fails. Jacoby Brissett to Miami is a move that I didn't think I needed to know or wanted to know, but it is. It makes all the sense in the world. I've been behind Jacoby Brissett for many years now, and I feel like he's been he's been thrown under the bus a little bit. You know, I think he did well in New England. Never really got a locked in 100% believe in him chance in Indianapolis. I think they were just trying to get the hangover off of Andrew Luck retiring. And then now that Carson Wentz there, it kind of leaves Jacoby Brissett out to dry. I thought many different teams should have looked at Jacoby Brissett and said, there's something here with this guy. Didn't always play consistent in that one season where he was mostly the starter. Didn't play to the best ability. But that was a team on the rise, and I think he won them some games based on himself, and then he lost them some games based on not taking that extra chance. So I think now with that experience, I think Jacoby Brissett deserves a second chance to be a number one starter on a team. He's a very intelligent young man, can use his feet when he needs to, a good build to him, and a good arm, not a great arm. But for Miami, I think this makes all the sense in the world. We have the uncertainty of Tua Tagovailoa. Some players have already given up on Tua, and that's hard for me to realize because it's only been 1 year for this guy. And yeah, the injuries I think played a toll on his mental game as far as taking those chances, and really the game plan of Brian Flores saying, look, Tua, don't do what Ryan does as far as making those bad throws, forcing throws down the field. But when you can't even make a slant route throw, that's kind of concerning. Tua now has an off season fully to train, to know the system, to develop his game under that system. So it's good to have Tua now get into his second year with the expectations lower to where they're not going to expect him to be the number one MVP for sure. Now with the time and development that he will have, we'll see the best Tua that we can. I like the fact that he's very careful with his throws and he doesn't like to make the bad decisions. It worked out in some of those games last year to where his whole team was doing their part. Special teams, defense, they took care of Tua Tagovailoa. But there's got to be that next level to Tua to get the job done and be a quarterback, a franchise quarterback. If he can't get it done, you have a safety blanket that I think is better as far as development goes compared to Tua in Jacoby Brissett. And if Jacoby gets his chance as a starter, I think that's actually better for the Miami Dolphins going long term. So, another hot take. Why not? Let's just throw him out there. It's like almost midnight. I'm tired as hell. Jacoby Brissett will be the starter of the Miami Dolphins at some point next season. I love this move. For only 1 year, it's cheap. It might be just a backup deal. Cool. That's great. But worst comes to worst, Jacoby Brissett will take a good Miami Dolphins team that should be a playoff team this next upcoming season deeper into the playoffs, in my opinion. That's a great move. It's honestly my favorite move of the offseason so far. So, now with that out of the way, we got to talk about big spend, the big baller himself, the quadruple B big baller Bill Belichick, spending money like it's coming out of all of his rings. This man has gone out and said, you guys said that the dynasty was over. You said that the Patriots are finished and they're rebuilding. No, they're restructuring. Because guess what, guys? They're buying everybody. Now, granted, not all of these moves are, like, I'm not behind all of these moves. Some of these moves, I'm like, hold on. Like, giving Jalen Mills 4 years, $24 million does not make sense to me. But that little Bill Belichick in my head comes out and says, he didn't work in Philadelphia, but a lot of people work in New England. And you know what? I can't go wrong with that. Look, it started with the re-signing of Cam Newton. Let's briefly talk about Cam Newton, all right? Like, we've all seen the video of him badgering alongside a teenager at a football camp. And it's not the one. That's not the one from like years ago where he's arguing with him and he's talking crap to him. This one, it looks bad at first because he's arguing with him. Kids are going to be kids. Teenagers are going to be teenagers. They're not going to make the right decision. So, of course, I'm not on the teenager side as well. I will criticize Cam Newton all day long, and you know that I'm not a fan of Cam Newton, and I will never think that Cam Newton is an above-average quarterback. But then there was that part of the video where Cam Newton says, look, man, I just want to talk. I'm out here trying to do better for you guys. I'm trying to give you advice. If you want to make it in the league, you got to just respect that I'm here for you. So respect that, and we can have a decent conversation. That's maturity. Now, I have not seen that maturity out of Cam Newton at all. So I think we're at a point of Cam Newton's career to where he realizes, I'm not the best. I'm not the hotshot Superman that I was 5-6 years ago. There's a little bit of humility with Cam Newton now, and it's nice to see. So did I expect him to get another contract to be a starter? No, but I completely understand why the Patriots did that. Because, yes, there are excuses from last season. They relied heavily on the running game. They had no tight ends. They had basically no wide receivers, and their offensive line was always makeshift, and they didn't have certainty at that position. So now that they've made some moves to improve that offensive line, they've definitely made some moves to improve the wide receiver core and definitely improve the tight ends from what we'll talk about in a second. I think now giving Cam Newton that second chance in New England makes sense. And when it did hit, when it did click for this Patriots offense, you put up 45 and you beat some pretty good football teams, some playoff contenders, in my opinion, like the Arizona games. They dominated the Chargers. And they played some really good teams very well. They beat the Baltimore Ravens, for God's sakes. So this is a good football team that just had a bad year. And now they just reloaded, cocked the gun, and they're ready to shoot. Because alongside Cam Newton, they just went out of the way for this one. And I'm not going to name every single one, but let's name the ones that should be named out of damn respect. Tight end, Jonnu Smith. An amazing talent. An incredible athlete. Had an amazing year with the Tennessee Titans and was going to get big money somewhere. Well, it just happened to be New England. 4 years, $50 million, 31 and a quarter of that guaranteed money. Oh, they liked Jonnu Smith, and I love Jonnu Smith. Look, I know that we kind of stray away from picking up New England Patriots on fantasy teams because they just don't have the big numbers like everyone else does. But if there's one guy that I'm taking in the draft for my fantasy team next year, it's Jonnu Smith. That man is going to be amazing in this offense. And we love the 2 tight ends set in New England, right? We want to get back to Rob Gronkowski and Aaron Hernandez. So we need a second tight end. We didn't have it with any of the guys last year. So why not bring in the stud himself that's been dealing with a lot of injuries in his early part of his career, but could really work out as a systematic guy like in New England. Hunter Henry signs a 3-year, $37.5 million contract, $25 of that $1 million guaranteed. Oh, that salary cap is going to be a bitch for everybody else, but not for the New England Patriots. Jonnu Smith and Hunter Henry together is dangerous. It is absolutely dangerous as far as run blocking, as far as pass game. Put together, Damian Harris, Sony Michel, maybe James White, unless he leaves, alongside Hunter Henry and Jonnu Smith. The excuse that there's no weapons on this team is gone now because you got plenty. You can still do the running game efficiently, and Damian Harris is an absolute beast, so we love to see it. But now you got that vertical threat. Now you got that play-action threat in Jonnu Smith and Hunter Henry to go alongside with that. How about Kendrick Bourne, a nice utility guy that we saw in San Francisco, signs a 3-year deal? Look, he took a lot of that weight last year with a lot of the injuries that happened last year for the 49ers. And he stepped up to the plate. There's only so much that he could do, but I saw the potential in Kendrick Bourne. So I love this deal for a speedy guy, utility guy that can be used on the play action or play fake ability that we might see with Josh McDaniels next year. I do like Kendrick Bourne. Do I love Nelson Aguilar? He had a good year with the Raiders last year, which was surprising considering of his bad tenure with the Philadelphia Eagles. So I'm kind of eerie about Aguilar. I don't want to buy into it yet, but we all know that the Patriots just make it work with some not deadbeat, but unlikely wide receivers. So why not Nelson Aguilar join the club? Like I said earlier, they've beefed up that offensive line and put some certainty to that. They have acquired a trade from the Raiders. Talking about the Raiders, Trent Brown, who's a nice pickup for them. I mean, come on. Like why did I wait so long for this one? Matt Judon, 4-year, $56 million. An amazing player. And they needed that pass rush. They needed something up front that they were lacking last season. And Matt Judon is that guy. He is going to get you productivity on that defensive front alongside Lawrence Guy, alongside Chase Winovich, who is a great blitzer and a great linebacker. Josh Uche, who is an incredibly young player that has a lot of potential in the world. I liked his play last season. Kyle Duggar. I'm buying a Kyle Duggar jersey at some point in my life. And guess what? Guess who's back in town? Coming from Miami. Off of just 1 year from his contract there. Kyle Van Noy signs with the Patriots once again. Comes back to his home. Guys, I told y'all. Those are not even all the moves that we can talk about. We also got J.C. Jackson, who's going to pick up the tender. Justin Bethel, 3 years, $6 million to beef up that secondary. I just talked about Kyle Duggar. The McCourty brothers. Stephon Gilmore, we don't know yet. most likely done in New England, but I think they've done enough to make up for that. They can take care of business without him. But look, this defense next year with some of their opt-outs, coming back Dont'a Hightower as well, you mean to tell me that a front seven consisting of Matt Judon, Kyle Van Noy, Chase Winovich, Dont'a Hightower, Lawrence Guy, Josh Uche, and Kyle Duggar can come on blitz as well because he can be utilized in different ways. You mean to tell me that you're not scared of that? This team was the best defense in all of football 2 years ago. That doesn't just go away. Opt-outs were a thing in 2020. Some guys just wanted to go elsewhere. Well, they're back. And I think this Patriots team without Tom Brady can be better than ever. This defense is scary. They can be the Washington of the AFC. The New England Patriots were never gone. They just took a little break. They went on vacation for 2020. This team almost made the playoffs last season without anything on offense. They were so predictable, the most predictable offense in football last season, because all you had to do was stop the run. They weren't going to get vertical threats down the field. They weren't going to work off the play action without a running game. And Cam Newton can't throw past like 25 yards 9 out of 10 times. So they can work this system now, even if it is predictable, with these players, and it'll be 10 times better, 100 times better. But guess what? The reason why they were still good 2 years ago, even with Tom Brady having nothing to work with and everybody injured, nobody in the wide receiver position to work with. All he had was the running game as well, and no one to really protect him up front. That defense won them football games. This defense can win them football games. Bill Belichick shaved his head. He got a haircut. It's a different man, and I'm terrified for anybody in the AFC. If there's a team that you need to look out for that you don't think will take down the big dogs of Buffalo and Kansas City, well, guess what, people? New England's back, and they're not done. I wanted to do a podcast with Eddie, but a little birdie told me, and that little birdie's Eddie. There's still more to come. Insider source, I'm just saying. So, watch out. And we still got the draft to worry about. Jesus Christ. They had a really good draft last year, in my opinion. So if they do it again this year, this team is dangerous. This team is dangerous next season, and I'm all about it. I'd love to see New England come from the ashes and do it again. Do it again. Some other teams that are doing really well in free agency for me, and they're making a lot of moves. Jacksonville can be one of them. They picked up Carlos Hyde behind James Robinson, which is a nice pickup. Marvin Jones, who is an underrated wide receiver from Detroit. They signed him to a short-term deal worth $7 million. Philip Dorsett spent a lot of time in New England. He can be a nice piece, but a lot of young wide receivers on that roster that can go along some of these veteran guys. And then they pick up Shaquille Griffin for the cornerback position, signed him to a 3-year, $44.5 million deal, which is a nice pickup for them. They need some help on that defensive back position, and then they're going to get Trevor Lawrence in the draft. So Urban Meyer making some moves early on in his tenure with the Jacksonville Jaguars. I said it before, I'll say it again, the Washington football team is doing really well. They did it with Curtis Samuel, Ryan Fitzpatrick. They did pick up Lamar Miller as well, just for a signature back in the backfield alongside Antonio Gibson, so they're doing pretty well. And I think the last team that we should really talk about is the Arizona Cardinals. Now, I put myself out there and I said, Cliff Kingsbury, you got to step up. You got to step it up. I think J.J. Watt, getting him on that 2-year deal, does a lot for their defense. Now, Hassan Riddick has now gone to Carolina, so that's a huge loss for them. But J.J. Watt fills that hole very nicely as far as a pass rusher and stopping the run. Their defense is on the rise with Vance Joseph. I think they're building something really nice there in Arizona. And their offense is going to be explosive. It's going to be really nice. Well, with their additions this year, I think all of those statements and all of those predictions are just going to continue. Because not only J.J. Watt, but how about Marcus Golden? Really nice pickup. On offense, their offensive line is only going to get better with Rodney Hudson getting traded with the Las Vegas Raiders. And then this kind of threw me for a loop when I woke up today. but the Cardinals signed A.J. Green, finally leaving Cincinnati. Signs to a 1-year deal with them and got him pretty cheap considering the name A.J. Green. Now, will Larry Fitzgerald play this year? That's up in the air, but I'd be surprised if he does, and I'd be worried if he doesn't retire, because now we got DeAndre Hopkins, now we got Christian Kirk, Larry Fitzgerald, and A.J. Green as the quintuplets of the wide receiver position in Arizona. You're talking about some scary dudes that can beat a lot of cornerbacks. And this is a very nice thing for A.J. Green. I think this kind of takes the pressure off of him to be that number one guy. He got that spot taken from him last season with T. Higgins stepping up with Joe Burrow. So it kind of left him out to dry. And he was wanting to trade. He was wanting to get out of Cincinnati. I think it was a relationship that should have ended a long time ago. So he goes to a place to where now he's, honestly, in my opinion, the third or fourth best wide receiver on this team. And he doesn't need to take that control of being the number one guy. So if he does get hurt, it's going to be fine. He's not the number one guy they have to worry about. And now he can take less of a load on his body that he had to do in Cincinnati. So a nice mental escape for A.J. Green and a part of his career to where it's coming to an end. He's not as fast and not as quick as he once was due to age and due to injuries. But a nice spot for him to land, to where he can work in a very explosive offense with a great quarterback that's developing into his third year and is working alongside some great guys, work alongside DeAndre Hopkins, and can fit really well into the system when it comes down to playoff time, which Cardinals can be a playoff team. So these are not the only moves that the Cardinals have made, but they've done really well. They had a really good draft last year. They got DeAndre Hopkins last year, and they're continuing it this year. And so I'm excited to see what the Arizona Cardinals do this next season. So this is going to do it for this episode of the Bubblehead Sports Podcast. And like I said, next episode, we're going to focus more on the bads, the losers of the free agency market so far. And by this time tomorrow, really, we got a lot of other deals that are going to go down. So we'll mention those. So keep track of the episodes and turn on your notifications if you want, or if you can, really. And we're going to go through some episodes over the next few days. I got to make up for some of the days that I didn't do it. So we're getting through these. I'm really tired, so I'm going to go to bed. This has been Bubblets on the Bubblehead Sports Podcast. Make sure you're the reason why someone smiles today, and we'll see you next time on the podcast.
Yeah, hold on. Tell me who's your top 5 quarterbacks right now, dead or alive, huh? And how much do you care about a ring if the best player got carried by the team? Now would you lose if it been a better draft pick? And do you cuss when your team get their ass